Like a good place to stop that track. Hi guys, how you doing? Nick Jennison for Guitar Interactive GI Plus. It's Monday. We're doing the thing that we do on Mondays, which is hang out and talk about the guitar. Specifically today, we are hanging out and talking about the guitars with holes in them. In this stream brought to you by Elixir Strings. Now, it should probably come as no surprise to you that today's focus, because look, I'm holding one, is the acoustic guitar. However, we are talking about how an acoustic guitar can help you become a better electric lead guitar player. We've used the term shred to kind of broadly define that, but we're actually going to focus more on just being a better, more in tune, let's say in tune with your own technique, etc., etc., etc. Lead guitar player off the back of some practice time with your acoustic. Now, if you're wondering why I'm wearing headphones, the reason for this is this guitar is a lovely Court Flow OC. You can check out a review of this guitar in a previous edition of Guitar Interactive magazine. It's a great guitar. You can normally tell the good ones because they come home with me, and this one's come home with me. So the reason I'm wearing headphones today is because I can't blare backing tracks through my monitors, so I have to have headphones so that I can actually hear the track that I'm playing along to, but I can kind of like move those around as we go. So anyway, listen, before we go any further, if you are a new member of our little streaming community here, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you on board. Thanks so much for coming on. It is lovely to have you. We think you can get a lot of use out of the stuff we're talking about today. Hopefully we're going to learn a bit about being better guitar players. Also, if you're one of our returning streamers, also want to take this opportunity to thank you for being with us once again. It is a lot of fun doing these streams on Monday evenings. It's the highlight of my week. Love hanging out with you guys and talking about guitar, and today is no exception. So before we get too deep into the weeds of our lessons, let's take a quick minute and check in with the stream, see how everyone's doing. We got loads of friends in. We've actually got a watcher on Twitch, if you can believe that, because we're on Twitch. Nobody watches us on Twitch. It's one of those things. So anyway, let's see who we got. Rasta Ben, a new commenter from last week, if I'm not mistaken. Not sure if you're a new viewer, but certainly a new commenter last week, says, all aboard the hype train. For sure, my man. All aboard the hype train for some acoustic guitar. We love a bit of that. Paul Cornish says, evening, fellow Axeman. Might have to catch up later on. If so, I'll check in with you all. There we are. Stupid new phone. I hear you, man. New phones. pardon me, got a cough there. New phones, they take a bit of adapting to, as does changing guitars, and that is one of the core principles we're going to talk about today, which is the idea of variation and the adaptation that it provokes. So we'll get to that. I'm just trying my best not to lean too far forward in the guitar, because as you guys can see, my camera is wanting to autofocus on my hand and not on my face. So not that you guys want to see my face, you want to see my hands really, but that's another story for another day. Who else do we have in the house? PJ is here. PJ, hi Nick, hi guys. Can I say, because of your Monday sessions, I'm now able to learn new licks and songs far quicker than ever before. My playing is cleaner and just more enjoyable. Thank you, Nick. That is a lovely compliment, PJ. I really appreciate that. That is the reason that we do these streams. The reason we do them is to help you guys become the guitar players that you want to be. So man, that makes me very happy. I am over the moon with that. So, hey, listen, if you guys are getting results from these streams, let me know. It makes me very happy. We'd all love to hear about your progress as well. We've got a lovely community going on here. I love how encouraging you guys are of each other as well. So, PJ, that's a lovely compliment. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Marcin says, hi, guys. I'm on a business trip, so I'll catch the stream during the week. Marcin, it won't be the same without you, but I'm sure we'll have some good stuff for you when you come back. Enjoy your business trip. Because every time I shred on my cheap old acoustic, my fingers hate me. I guess my late gauge of strings is justified, or am I switching to keyboard? Just kidding, the plastic instrument of the devil. No, we love our keyboard playing sisters and brothers, but even still. Anyway, Timothy Appley's in the house. Timothy, it's lovely to have you on board. Says, good afternoon, Nick and fellow guitarists. I see our continents are back in sync with the time change here in the USA. Yeah, you guys get daylight saving time a week out from us, don't you? It's a crazy one. So we're back on the cold winter time where it gets dark really early. I'll be honest with you, I don't understand why we bother switching times at all. I would have it daylight saving time all year round if it was up to me. I prefer a lighter evening rather than a lighter morning, but that's musician's fear. Anyway, who else do we have in the house? Timothy Appley, another comment here real quick, says, I put the same gauge strings on my acoustic guitars as my electric guitars so they feel the same when I switch. Ah, that's a good shout. Put a new pair of Elixir light strings on my SG last night. I used 10 to 46. 10 to 46 is a good gauge for an acoustic guitar. We're using 11 to 52 today, which is a little heavier than I typically use. I would typically use either a 9 to 42 or 10 to 46 on my electric guitars. These are 11s on this acoustic. They're Elixir 11s. You might be wondering when the last time I changed these strings were. It was last time I brought this guitar out on stream, right, which was months and months ago. These strings are still going strong. Such is the power of the Elixir coating. It's wild. It still sounds really good. So we like a bit of that. PJ says, I use super light on electrics as it's far easier for compound bends. Acoustic, I tend to have rusty ones. You need Elixirs, my man. Anyway, so real quick, I want to know from you guys, what strings are you using on your acoustics, right? I want to know specifically gauges, but we can also talk about string brands if that's something you have a preference for. Let me know. Again, acoustic strings here. Do you like the Elixirs? So we've got Elixirs on today. They sound really good. They've also been kind enough to sponsor this stream, so a little bit biased on that front, but I think they make great acoustic strings. Great electric strings too. Anyway, who else do we have in the house? Let's quickly tune in with Rasta Ben uses 8s on his electrics, 10s on his acoustics. Sorry for my weak fingers. Listen, we've been over this in a previous stream, man. You should have no shame about using 8s on your guitars. Now, there are a legion of great guitar players that use 8s on their electrics, including, but not limited to, Alan Holdsworth, Jimmy Page, Tony Iommi, Yngwie Malmsteen, Brian May. What do these guys all have in common? They're all amazing guitar players with amazing tone. I don't know where this myth came from, that 8 will make you sound like a bad person. I don't know. Or make you have bad tone, or you're a bad player, or whatever. The worst one for me with this, I'm just going to get in a soapbox about string gauge real quick, is this idea that if you use light gauge strings, you are somehow less manly, because we all know that the most manly pursuit and the thing that defines a person as being a man is how heavy the thin bits of metal they use on their guitar that they use to play music. It's the silliest thing ever. I think it's absolutely blimmin' ridiculous. So yeah, use whatever strings feel good to you, man. I used 8s for a very, very long time. My hands got a little stronger when I took up recreational powerlifting, but I still use 9s, and I'm quite happy with them. Sometimes my hands get a bit brickish and I have to switch to 10s. I also switch to 10s around about NAMM time because everybody strings their guitars with 10s, so I need to be able to play them. But yeah, like a bit of 9. Here we go. Here's another one. Timothy Appling referring to Marcin, a special channel to talk about guitar stuff is a good idea. Or referring to the Discord. We like that idea a lot. A Discord server. If that's something you guys are into, I know we've talked about this before, drop us a comment real quick because I'll pass that on to our tech support guys and I'll see if that's something we can concoct. I know we talked about it a little while ago, and then we talked about doing a white label social media platform, etc. But we'll get to that. It's another story. Timothy Appling used 9s when he was younger and had more accurate fingering. Seems these days I need 10s to keep my bends in tune. That's absolutely fair, man. I feel like string gauge is, I've talked about this before, it's like shoe size. It's one of these things. There's no value judgment based on which size you use. You just need the pair that fits. Or, in this case, you just need some strings that fit. Had a fantastic conversation with a student who was labouring under the misapprehension that they needed to use 13s to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I was like, well, first question, do you think Stevie Ray Vaughan would still sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan without 13s? Or would he just sound terrible? They'd like, no, he'd sound amazing. So there you go. It's probably not the strings. Also, if I was to go to a shoe shop, like say a running shoe shop, and I was to say, what size shoe did Usain Bolt wear? I think it's like a 13. Well, I wear an 11, but I want 13 because Usain Bolt wears 13s. And if I have 13s, I'll be able to run fast like Usain Bolt. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way with strings either. So anyway, we've got some discussion about some cool acoustics too. Sacred Godslayer says sooner or later I'll have to pick a new acoustic because the Ovation sounds great, but that ballback screams don't play me. I am with you here, right? Ovation guitars, fabulous sounding guitars. I cannot deal with those ballbacks. They slide off my lap. They're great standing up, but not a fan. It's one of those things. Maybe I'm just an old man screaming at a cloud. Who knows? Let's see who else we have in the house real quick. We'll just get through these a little bit more fast if we can, a little bit more rapidly. Response Audio says, hi Nick, hi guys. I hope you're having a good start to the week. I am indeed. Got some more discussion of Ovations from David Yates, who I keep calling Dorian Yates because I'm a meathead. Ovation were really popular with rock bands in the 80s. They've certainly got a distinctive sound. I'll never forget seeing the Scorpions play Holiday in 1982. With Schenker and Jabs both playing one. For sure, man. We recently did a bunch of reviews on some of the limited edition Takamines that have come out recently, and they have this old style Takamine preamp that is not an all singing, all dancing, super natural, flat sounding preamp. It's quite the opposite. It's like a really deliberately coloured preamp. It sounds a little distorted, a little bit pushed in the mids. It's great, but it's a very distinctive sound. Totally agree with you there. So anyway, Response Audio says, I have a Garrison acoustic. It's a brand that was made in Newfoundland, Canada. Had a fibre resin shot through a mould for a frame and a solid wood top, back and sides. Even as buzz, fight and tuning system. That is unbelievable. And Gibson mothballed them. Gibson, bring them back. We want some Garrison acoustics. I've never played one, but I've heard very, very good things. Who else do we have? Phil Jones, never played an acoustic. That's unbelievable. Only unplugged electrics. Well, dude, maybe now is the time. Maybe today is the day that will make you, make the jump to some acoustic stuff. So anyway, we've got some love for string gauges going on here real quick. Who've we got? Let's see. Larry Warren is playing Elixirs 12 to 53, 11 gauge Diodarios, EJ16s. I'm not sure what gauge that is. Let me know. 11 gauges. We've got some 12s, etc., etc., etc. What else do we have? Frank says 9 on 12 string. I got my 12 string just out of shot here, actually. I was debating bringing it out, but anyway, yeah, more is more in it. Says more is more in it. Says our man Jonathan Graham. What else do we have? Ballback. Careful with that one. You gotta be careful with your ballbacks. Careful. We got 2 carfuls. Careful. Anyway, you're an old man. You're 6 years younger than me. No man, we're just millennials aging out here. Anyway, listen, so discussions of string gauge, discussions of ballback guitars aside, let's take a quick second and just remind you guys that today's stream brought to you by Elixir Strings, who have provided the strings for this guitar. They've also been kind enough to sponsor this stream. If you're in the market for some new strings for acoustic guitars, this still sounds great, and it's been months since I changed the strings. Like, literally the last time we did an acoustic stream was the last time I changed these strings, which was a long time ago. So anyway, let's get stuck into the meat of today's session, which is how we can become better electric lead guitar players by practicing on acoustic. And first, let's just dispel the myth that I put in the title today. Oh, Connor Thomas is in the house. Connor says, hey, an acoustic. Connor actually knows how to play acoustic guitars. He is our acoustic correspondent. He's got some tech sessions coming for you very soon. Fantastic player. You guys met Connor a couple of weeks ago. I will not be playing any Tommy Emmanuel style wizardry like Connor does, because that is 100% not my bag. But I do enjoy playing acoustic for a whole variety of reasons. Now, the first thing I want to dispel very quickly is this myth that if you can't do something on an acoustic, then you can't really do it on an electric. Well, I've always found this to be a very strange line of thinking, because I guess it's a little bit like saying if you can't make a journey, particular journey on a bicycle, then you can't drive there in a car. Strange. You are unable to drive them in a car. They're different beasts, and we know they're different beasts because they have very different sonic properties. Now, the interface and the location of all the notes is the same. We use either pick or fingers or something else to strike the strings. We press strings against frets to create notes. That's all about the same, but the way the instrument responds is drastically different between acoustics and electrics. Let's start by talking about one of the crucial things, which is the difference in dynamics. Now, one thing you will have noticed if you've spent any time playing an acoustic, especially a plugged-in acoustic, is that acoustic guitars tend not to have anywhere near the length of sustain that you would expect to find, certainly on a distorted electric guitar, the kind of guitar that we would, or the kind of sound we would use to play lead lines with. So what do I mean by that? Well, very quickly, let's go to the two hands cam. Let's go to the close-up cam, I guess, at least. So if we start here real quick, if we were to play something on our B string, on our first fret, first finger on our fifth fret rather, if we play this note, it rings out a while, but it doesn't have the same evenness of sustain that we have on an electric guitar. Now, on an electric guitar, what would happen here is we would play this note, and the attack would be about the same amplitude as our sustain portion of our note. Now, if you guys are familiar with this thing we've talked about before, which is this attack, sustain, decay, release curve, if that makes any sense, when we play on an acoustic, we can get a very pronounced attack, a very pronounced transient on the start of the note, and then the sustain is notably quieter than the rest of the notes. Now, what's going on here is this is just what guitars sound like. Guitars are famous for not having a huge amount of acoustic sustain compared to something like a violin or a cello, where you can continually bow the instrument. It's just a facet of the instrument that we're playing. Now, the fact that we use distortion and compression and amplifiers that aren't clean to add sustain to our electric guitars is why we get these lovely long sustaining lines. But if we're not careful with our acoustic, we can find ourselves running out of sustain very quickly. So if we take some bends, for example, if we were to bend on, say, for example, this 10th fret note going up to the 12th fret note in the B string, now I could conceivably make that note last an absolute age on my electric guitar. On my acoustic guitar, that is 100% not the case. Now, what this does is it forces us to play in the knowledge that we don't have limitless sustain to play with. Now, we do get some sustain, and it's cool, and we have to work very hard to get that sustain, so this also forces us to be careful with how we manage the sustain on our guitar. Now, as far as this goes, let's very quickly do an experiment on this. If we were to take, again, this first finger on our 5th fret on our B string, I want to show you very quickly what the difference is with a couple of different fretting positions. So there are a couple of options with where we can fret a note. And if you have your guitar with you, especially if it's plugged in, I'm going to encourage you to do this experiment with me. So, very quickly, our options for fretting a note. If we're fretting our 5th fret, we could fret somewhere back here. It's generally not the best idea in the world. We could fret somewhere in this kind of mid-range region. We could fret somewhere close to the fret but not on the fret, and then we can fret right up against the fret. Let me show you the difference here. Watch this. It's very, very subtle, but hopefully you can see the difference with my finger positioning when I go from just behind the fret but not touching it to bumping right up against the fret. So if I go like this versus this, notice the difference in tone, but also notice how the note decays a little faster when we are bumping right up against this fret wire. Now, this is something I've talked about for a while, but this encourages us to fret in such a way that we're not bumping right up against the wire, but rather we're just ever so slightly behind the fret wire, which gives us the cleanest contact between string and fret without any finger overlapping over the top, which could potentially dampen our sustain, like this. There it is just behind the fret, there it is right on top. Now we can get away with this on an electric guitar, because if we play this with a lot of distortion, you know, the note's going to sustain regardless, but on an acoustic guitar, not so. So we're going to do a little bit of an exercise here together. What we're going to do is we're going to be playing some simple fingering patterns. We'll do finger 1, and then either finger 2 or 3, and then finger 4. And we're going to do this on our B string. We're going to begin with finger number 1 on fret number 5. We're going to play finger 3 on fret number 7, finger 4 on fret number 8. And we're going to play from low to high using picking on our right hand, going down, and then up again. And we're going to play like this. Let's go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Now what I'm going to encourage you to do with this is I'm going to get you to pay attention to where your finger is in the fret and play with rolling it onto the fret versus rolling it back just behind the fret. And pay attention to the consistency of sound you get when you're just behind the fret. Let's speed it up a little bit. So when I roll up into that position where I'm just on top of the fret, things start to come apart. It's something that's definitely worth being aware of. Now, if we do the same thing with fingers 1, 2, and 4, we can make a bit of an exercise out of this. So what we might do is we might play 1, 3, 4, 3 on frets 5, 7, and 8, and then 1, 2, 4, 2 on frets 4, 5, and 7 to get this. Now, this is going to highlight some tendencies that you may or may not have when it comes to your finger positioning in the fret. And this is a valuable thing because this is not something that tends to jump out on electric guitars because, you know, the distortion thing, for all it's fabulous, it does have a tendency to disguise some of these little micro errors that we might be making. Now, the important question is this something worth worrying about? And is it something worth fixing? So I guess it's not something particularly worth worrying about because if you're playing with a load of distortion and it doesn't seem to be affecting the way the notes are coming out, you know, you may get away with it, you may be good, but for me personally, I like the knowledge that I'm playing in a way that is producing the best tone straight from the guitar, which I can then feed into the amp and hopefully dial in the best tone out of that. Now, that's something worth taking a look at, but there is another aspect to this that our distorted electric guitar tends to cover up, which is how joined up our playing is. Now, when we talk about playing joined up, this is something that is, I'm going to say it's something that kind of separates somebody who's a very, very skilled player from somebody who's maybe a little less experienced and maybe isn't quite as skillful in terms of the way they sound. Now, playing joined up is not something that we have to do all of the time, but it's something that should be, you know, it should be a default. We should choose to not play joined up versus not playing joined up because it's the only thing we can do. What do I mean by joined up? Well, joined up is if we were to take our 3-note per string shred pattern from last week, from a few weeks ago rather, which is a 3-5-7, 3-5-7, 4-5-7, 4-5-7, 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8. If I was to play this from the bottom to the top and back again, there's a couple of ways I could do it. I could play it with the notes joining up with each other like this. You might have caught the note there where I just rolled onto the fret wire very quickly and it became a bit of a dead one. I'll do that again. Now that's an example of playing joined up, where each one of these notes is full in its duration and doesn't stop until I pick the next note. It's very common when we start to play faster passages on acoustic, because it's harder to play, because the pick attack is so much more pronounced versus the sustain, it's common for us to start doing this. Notice the difference. This is joined up. He is not joined up. Now again, it seems like a subtle difference because all the notes are coming out, but this is something that starts to become more apparent as we start to get faster and faster and faster because of the physical difficulty of playing an instrument like this versus the luxury of playing something very, very easy to play like this wall of electrics that I have over here. So how might we use this to our advantage? Well, what we might do is we might start practicing the idea of playing as legato and joined up as we can. PJ has the comment almost staccato, for sure. I would call it probably the involuntary staccato. So this and our previous point about sustain and about fretting position is the previous point about fretting position and sustain and the attack of the note. All of these are to do with avoiding involuntary staccato. Now, staccato is a cool sound. If we want to sound staccato, we should be able to choose to do it, but it shouldn't be something that we have to do. We should be able to join our notes up, and it's generally my experience that it's more challenging to develop a joined up technique versus it is to, and then it's, what I'm trying to say with this, it's easier if you have a technique that is joined up and that you can play joined up with, and then you choose to play staccato. That's way easier than if you can only play staccato and then you have to try and play joined up. So to that end, let's do a little something with our backing track. So we're going to be in the key of A minor here, right? And we're going to experiment with some different subdivisions. Now, subdivisions of our notes are things like quarter notes, where we play like this. Eighth notes like this. Eighth triplets, where we go 16ths. I'm going to see how far I can go up through these subdivisions before things start to get a little less than joined up, let's say. So let's play with that real quick. I'm going to throw my backing track on. The backing track is the Fleetwood Mac style backing track in A minor. I'm going to start by playing quarter notes. Now this is the track from our intro. I'm just going to turn that down a tiny bit so we can hear what's going on with the guitar. So what I might do is I might start by playing quarters in half time even, which is like this. So, and I'm going to improvise freely here in A minor. Notice I didn't quite get that note fretted. Now, if I bump up against the fret wire, overshot it there, things start to get a little bit muted. The tone isn't as good, the sustain isn't as good. I'm having to be very conscious about my fretting position. We'll also talk about fretting pressure in a second. Let's play twice as quick. Let's try going like this. Let's go. A little muted note somewhere in that passage. Let's try doing something with eighth triplets. notice that that is already starting to staccato out a little bit there. So what I'm going to try and do here is I'm going to try and join that up a little bit better. And that's starting to behave a little bit nicer here. Let's try doing 16ths. That's starting to join up pretty well. Let's try a triplet. Less reliable. So what this is telling me is there is a little speed limit here where I'm stopping joining up my phrases, and that's kind of a spot where I should go, okay, that's cool, I'm gonna work there. This will then pay dividends when I come to play my electric, because it's gonna mean that I'm not doing anything weird like cutting notes off short just because things are getting faster in a way that could be masked by, say, distortion, or it could be masked by reverb and delay. The acoustic guitar is revealing all of this stuff to me. Now, should I worry about this when I'm improvising, when I'm playing? No, I should just play and I should have fun. But this is definitely something that is worth working on in your practice time. Now, this leads me to another aspect of the dynamic nature of the acoustic guitar that gives us something fun to work with, which is it also encourages awareness of our right hand dynamics. Now, what do I mean by this? Right hand dynamics on our electric guitar. Our electric guitar is famously compressed, right? So even the cleanest of clean sounds, even the most ubiquitous clean amp, say something like a Blackface Fender, or say like a Roland Jazz Chorus, or something like that. These are all still very compressed amps in terms of their dynamic range. Even high headroom clean amps that we'd say, they still have a comparatively compressed sound compared to, say for example, plugging a guitar directly into a mixing desk. The acoustic guitar, unless you apply a compressor to it, not so. It has a very, very wide dynamic range and a very merciless dynamic range, let's say. So it requires a level of dynamic evenness and control to play convincingly that is not necessarily part of every electric guitarist's repertoire. So me personally, I have a relationship with dynamics where I tend to use dynamics with my electrics. I tend to play with a bit of distortion on, or a lot of distortion on. I use dynamics to elicit tonal change. What I mean by that is if I hit a note harder, it sounds different to when I hit a note softer, but the actual volume doesn't really change. On an acoustic guitar, if I hit hard, let's go to the two hands cam, if I hit really, really hard on, say for example, this 5th fret note on our B string, versus picking softly, the note gets very loud very, very quick, and we get this very pronounced transient sound, this very pronounced bap at the start of the note. So once again, picking very softly, picking very hard. And I actually have a limiter on this guitar as well to stop that from taking everybody's heads off in the stream, but where I'm sitting, it's super, super dynamic. So what this encourages us is it encourages us to be aware of the dynamics of our playing in a way that maybe we wouldn't be if we were just playing our electric guitar. So here's a challenge for you. We're going to throw that backing track back on and we're going to play through this together. And what I want you to do is I want you to try and play every 4th note. We're going to try playing just an even stream of notes. We'll try playing every 4th note with a very loud touch. And then we'll try playing all of the other notes with a medium to soft touch. What is that going to sound like? What's it going to look like? Well, let's go to these cameras here and let's show you. Now, this is something that is, again, going to pay huge dividends when you go back to your electric. So what we might get if we play at this pace, bop, 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 we try to accent every fourth note, we might get this. Now that's a very difficult thing to do, and I'm going to challenge you to do that. So you take a turn right now, and I'm going to count you off. We'll go soft, 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 loud, soft, 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 loud, soft, 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 loud, soft, soft. Now on your own, let me know in the comments if you can do this. I'm going to take a pass now. So again, it's fourth one is loud. Now I'm going to give you a turn. 1, 2, 3, 4. Not the easiest thing in the world to do. I'm sure you can agree, but stick with it because this is a valuable thing. Daryl Queen's got a great comment here. Says, this is why I practice bop language and acoustic. Helps me focus on those swung accents for sure. So let me know how you're getting on in the comments. Let me know if this is working for you, if this is something that you're able to do, or it's something that's posing a big challenge to you. What we're going to do now is we're going to try and accent every third note. So we'll play loud, soft, soft, loud, soft, loud, etc. This will be more challenging, and I'm going to probably mess this up, but I'm going to have it go all the same. So let's try. I messed it already. Went to the fourth. So you take a turn though, every third note. So remember, we're accenting every third note here, or at least trying to. So the next challenge we're going to do with this, we're going to go a little bit further with this. We're going to take the same idea, but this time we're going to contrast playing loudly versus playing more softly. So what this is going to sound like is we'll maybe take a phrase or a bar playing loud versus a phrase or a bar playing soft. And we're going to try not to get any soft notes in the loud bit and not to get any loud notes in the soft bit, if that makes any sense. Let me show you what this might sound like. So I might get something like this. You take a turn, take a loud note or a loud phrase, then a soft phrase, and contrast them. Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, take a loud phrase, contrast it against a soft phrase. And we're trying to play that with as even a dynamic within each phrase as we possibly can. I'm going to take another turn. Here's loud. Soft. Loud. Soft. You take a turn. And we'll stop there. Nice. Now, definitely not the easiest thing in the world to do, but in terms of highlighting this, this control in your playing, this ability to play dynamically, and this ability to accent pretty much at will and to control the dynamics of your playing, especially controlling the softer side of the playing, is huge when it comes to playing smoothly and fluently on a distorted electric guitar. So this stuff is, when you practice it on acoustic guitar, it's gold. It's so good because it just takes everything that we're trying to listen for here and turns it up to 11. So if you play softly, it comes out as super, super, super soft. If you play loudly, it comes out as really, really, really loud. It also starts to reveal how your tendencies when it comes to sustaining notes will interact with maybe your dynamics. So maybe you might find that when you're playing hard, it's more difficult to play joined up, and when you play soft, it's much easier to play joined up. This should also perhaps inform how hard or how soft you play when you're playing your electric stuff. Now, here's one other thing that we talked about, that we're going to talk about. So this is something from, I'm just going to find this very quickly. Our friend Cow with a really great comment said something along the lines of acoustic. Let's see, where do we go? Oh yeah, here we go. Electric legato phrasing goes out of the window on regular acoustics. Now, this is something that's quite interesting because there are a lot of players out there who can do some very long and involved legato phrases. If you've seen Tom Quayle play the acoustic, it's wild. He just plays like Tom. It's like, oh, okay, right, so you can do the Tom thing, but you can do it on the acoustic guitar. That's crazy. Another example is if you listen to something like Spanish Fly by Van Halen. Now, that is the solo guitar piece on Van Halen 2, and apparently it came about because, Eruption came out. It was in the 1970s. There was a lot of folk rock going on at the time, so acoustics were big news, which is cool. And there were few mean-spirited guitar players, apparently quite a lot of mean-spirited guitar players, who said things to the effect of, oh yeah, the Eddie guy, he's great, but I bet he couldn't do any of that stuff on acoustic. So what did he do? Spanish Fly. And it's fabulous. So as far as legato technique on acoustic goes, it's actually not as off limits as you might think, but what you will notice with this is it's very hard to get it to be very loud. Now, this again is quite revealing, because what it can show us is it can show us how our tendencies are in terms of playing hard with our right hand while trying to play convincing legato with our left hand. But it also shows us how futile it is to add more force to legato phrases in an effort to make them louder. So anyway, let me show you what I'm talking about. So if we take some legato ideas that we've talked about over the past few weeks, let's say, for example, we took fret number 12, 10, and 8 on a high E string, and we played something like this. Now, something interesting happens with this, right? What you'll notice, if you're anything like me, is you'll notice that unlike on typical electric guitar legato, the hard part is not the pull-off. The pull-off is fine. We can pull off and have it sound great. The hard part is the hammer-on. So those pull-offs, they sound very convincing. The hammer-ons, not so much. And this is an interesting and challenging thing. Now, the reason for this is what we are able to do with pull-offs is we have two pull-offs that are available to us. We've talked about this before. Two pull-off techniques. We have a brush style pull-off, and we have pluck style pull-offs. We pluck very, very hard. Now, these are your typical loud sounding nylon string type pull-offs. Now, by plucking very hard with the left hand, we can get some very loud sounding notes, but it's almost impossible to get anything even close to as loud with just hammer-ons. I can get a way louder pluck with my pull-off than I can with my hammer-on, but if I'm careful and my fretting position is just right, and I focus my attention on the string striking the fret rather than on my finger striking the string, I can do at least some of the stuff that I can do on my electric with my legato technique. Now, this is interesting because this is an area where I wouldn't necessarily say this is a good idea. You should practice your legato technique on an acoustic. I think this is one of the areas where things start to come apart as far as this whole business of practice on your acoustic goes. So what I encourage you to do instead is, we've got a little bit of a connection issue there. That's okay. Let's resolve that very quickly. That shouldn't take too long. That's going to sort itself out as we go on. But yeah, this is where well-meaning players may say things like, hey, you know, practice everything, practice all your shred stuff on your acoustic, and you'll always be fine in your electric. Legato stuff, not so much, because what tends to happen is when we tend to practice very kind of like fast and involved hammer-on and pull-off passages on an acoustic guitar that's maybe not the friendliest guitar in the world, we tend to develop an overly heavy touch when we get to our electric. I would probably compartmentalize these. I think it's important to be able to play this stuff if you're planning on playing acoustic for any length of time, but personally, you know, again, I wouldn't necessarily use the acoustic as a vehicle for practicing that stuff, because the little bit of help that we get and the bit of ironing out of dynamic range that we get from our electric goes a long way towards making the legato technique work. So that's kind of I guess, a when not to. So, to summarize, how the acoustic can make you a better electric guitar player, better lead electric guitar player, if that makes sense, soloist, or whatever you want to call it. It does the following. It makes us super aware of our fretting position, because if we don't fret something just right, game over. We get a note that goes boom, and we can get away with that in electric. We can't get away with that in acoustic. Secondly, we don't become dependent on long sustain for our passages. So, because we don't have it, we don't have access to that long, luxurious, distorted guitar sustain. We also have the joined up nature, or not so much joined up nature, of our playing revealed to us in stark relief. Also, we have a much more pronounced dynamic range, which encourages us to be way more controlled with the dynamics and to develop dynamic control, if that makes any sense. Now, one last thing I want to talk about with this is something that we don't have access to on our acoustic guitar that we do have access to on an electric guitar is our suite of expressive techniques that we tend to use with electric. I'm talking about big screaming bends, vibratos, slides, etc. If that makes sense. So what we don't have access to, we don't have access to these for a whole plethora of reasons, mostly because we don't have the sustain, we don't have the interaction between note and amp, if that makes sense. We also don't have the same kind of like evening out of a dynamic range, so when we do these slides, we get a lot more squeak versus note. It can be a little bit annoying, but what this does is it actually weans us off that a little bit, and it forces us to use things like note duration, dynamic, touch, position on the string of our pick, and all these sort of things to create more interesting sounding lines when we would typically rely on the suite of expressive techniques that we have as electric guitarists. So it might be something like this, for example. If we go back to our backing track real quick, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we can create some interesting stuff with just dynamics. Now you'll notice that I can still do vibrato. I can still bend. It's just nowhere near as pronounced as on my electric. So in order to play interesting stuff, what I have to do is I have to play with things like, you guessed it, dynamics. Note duration. I have to use all of those other tools in my toolkit to create some interesting sounding lines. And again, an awareness developed of this stuff on acoustic spills over really well into your electric playing. So we're going to answer your questions in a little bit. I just want to take a quick second to remind you that today's stream has been brought to you by our friends at Elixir Strings. You want to find out some more? Go to the link down below. Click that. You can find out about all manner of wonderful things that Elixir do to their acoustic strings to make them so fantastic. I'm pretty sure I have a couple of sets here. I'm reaching into my string drawer. All I'm pulling out is the electric strings, but they're great strings. They make really, really good stuff. And again, these ones have lasted for yonks and still sound fabulous, as I'm sure you'll agree. Anyway, if you're interested in developing more of an expressive vocabulary on your electric guitar, I've got a course I want to share with you. This is a course that's available as part of your GI Plus membership. GI Plus is our exclusive lesson platform that's available at the link down below. You get loads and loads of lessons, all manner of good stuff. This is one of our flagship courses. It's called Expressive Techniques. Expressive Techniques covers the fundamentals of bends, vibratos, sliding, all that good stuff. It's a very, very in-depth course. I'm really proud of it. There's some really cool stuff in there. What we basically do is we teach you all these techniques, and then we also guide you through the process of applying them to a solo study. So we give you a solo study that is unornamented, and we teach you how to express with it. This is Expressive Techniques. When we come back, we're going to be answering your questions. So if you have questions, drop them in the comments. In the meantime, check this out. Hi guys, Nick Jennison with Guitar Interactive and GI Plus. Does your playing sound like this? When really you'd like it to sound like this? Now, the difference between these two examples are not the notes that are being played, but rather the way the notes are being played. I'm sure you've heard this before. Guitar players will say to you, it's not what you play, it's how you play it. And when it comes to creating interesting, emotive, and musical sounding guitar lines, that is very much the case. And in this course, Expressive Techniques Part 1, we aim to equip you with the tools to sound more musical, more emotive, more interesting, and ultimately more expressive on the guitar. And we are going to do this by exploring the three principal left-hand expressive techniques, which are slides, bends, and vibrato. I'm going to show you the mechanics of these techniques and how you can execute them cleanly, efficiently, and reliably. I'll also give you some exercises to help develop these techniques, and we're also going to discuss some musical applications, how you might use these techniques in your own playing. We're going to go into great depth with that stuff, and I'm also going to give you a solo study, a piece of music I've prepared, and I'm going to encourage you and kind of guide you through the process of applying expression to an otherwise expressionless and bare sounding piece of guitar playing. So at the end of this course, you are going to be able to take otherwise uninteresting and fairly dry pieces of music and turn them into expressive, colourful, musical lines. And you're also going to be able to take this and apply it to your own playing or to other people's music that maybe you're playing and you want to express in your own way. This is Expressive Techniques Part 1. My name is Nick Jennison for Guitar Interactive GI Plus. I hope you'll join me. I will see you in there. So there you go, guys. That's a look at expressive techniques, part 1. We got part 2 coming. Promise. I promised this for a while. It's coming. It's going to be good. But this stuff takes a lot of planning, man. It's not the easiest thing in the world to teach. So anyway, if you want to get a hold of that course, you can do so at the link down below, guitarinteractivemagazine.com, GI-plus, P-L-U-S, the word plus, not the symbol, plus. Anyway, on to some questions. We've got some really good ones coming in. Really good one. I promise our friend Collins says, let's touch the easiest solo. He's been asking about this. He's been saying, I've been trying to play solo, but I can't understand how it goes. Have my acoustic with me. Kind of show me the easiest solo before you end. For sure. What I'm going to do, my man, is I'm going to show you, I say my man, I'm going to show my fellow guitar player. I am going to show you a very easy way to get some cool stuff on the go as far as soloing and improvising goes. And we're going to do this with 4 notes. So there are 5 notes in one of the most common musical devices we tend to play in soloing guitar, let's say solo guitar. We tend to use something called the pentatonic scale. We're going to do 4 of those notes today. And these notes in question are the following. We're going to have our E string, our B string, dead easy. We're also going to have fret 3 on both of these strings. And we're going to contrast the idea of playing 3 against playing open. Now, if you play this against a low bass pulse, these in any order you want. I'm just making it up. And we're playing this in any rhythm we feel appropriate. You can ring it out. Anything you like, right? Dead easy. This is at the core of Delta blues guitar playing. Now, I'm not a Delta blues guitar player, right? It's not something I spend a whole lot of time with, but that's a really fun way to get into this sort of stuff. Now, if you want to take this a little step further, what you can then do is you can play, instead of fret 3 on the next couple of strings, on your G string, your D string, and your A string, you can play fret 2. And it gives us this. Loads of fun. That is, to my mind, the easiest way to play cool sounding solo stuff on your acoustic guitar. Dead simple, right? So there you go. Hopefully that's worked for you. He says, damn, that's so cool. I appreciate that, man. That's very kind of you. Hopefully you have a lot of fun with that, right? So it's definitely a great way to develop your soloing awareness. I think it's pretty easy too. So I'm glad you asked that question, and thanks for coming. Appreciate you being here, right? And appreciate you asking your questions. So there is no question too simple on these streams, by the way. I'm playing a lot of fancy stuff, but there is no question too simple here. So anyway, a couple of comments here very quickly. I want to highlight this one. Too bad Elixir doesn't carry 8. Elixir, if you're listening, 8s. We want 8s. Anyway, but they carry some very good 9s. So if you have a guitar that you want to put 9s on, they sound great. So anyway, tip of the appling. Good point about fingering the middle of the fret on the acoustics as opposed to close to the fret on the electrics. I just want to clear this up. I am an advocate for playing not right up close to the fret, but just a little further behind the fret on electrics and acoustics. So it doesn't matter where you are. I want you to not touch the fret while you play. We're not going to play right here in the middle, but we're going to play somewhere further back from the fret. There should be a sliver of air between your finger and the fret. It's close enough to get a clean sounding note. It's not going to feel too effortful. It's close enough that we can do convincing hammer-ons, but at no point are we in any danger of any skin overlapping the fret and dampening our tone like this. Now, Here's so I'm an advocate of that. So here's a cool one from our friend Chris Brown. It says managing string squeal while sliding up and down an acoustic guitar neck. I know quite a few non-guitarists find it annoying. It is quite annoying. This is what we're talking about. It's this. So if we play. Now, this squeak can be very irritating. A couple of ways we can manage this. First of all, the easiest way to mitigate this is to use coated strings. And the more coated, the better in this case. Now, I'm a fan of a lighter coating on a string, personally, but if you really want to de-squeak your guitar, a more aggressive coating, say for example the polywebs that Elixir make, that's a good way to manage that stuff because they're inherently less squeaky because the string is smoother. However, another thing we can do, a little trick we can do with this, is there is an angle of the hand that we can play at, which is going to be less squeaky than other angles. So let's experiment. There, we've ended up with this slightly less squeaky string angle because what I'm doing is I'm experimenting with when I'm sliding, am I right up on top of the fret like this? Am I slightly more off to the side? Am I almost dragging back over? So that kind of movement, it's almost like that's quite squeaky. That's less so. So almost being almost like leaning into the slide seems to help with that stuff. It's an interesting thing. Maybe we should ask Connor about this because Connor's a bit of an expert on this subject. He has had to dash off, but maybe we'll ask him next time. It's a very, very cool question, though. Cool comment a lot. I like that a lot. Helmet Strap says, I notice you tend to lift each left-hand finger when playing a passage. Is this better than, say, leaving the first finger down while playing? I think so, for a couple of reasons. I think it's better to lift any unused fingers you're using because you might need them. You might want them in a second, and I don't want them on a string. I want them up here, ready to go. I don't want them deployed. I want them up in the air, ready to go to the string that I want them to go to. But what this also does is it also eliminates any unnecessary fretting pressure and hand tension that comes from leaving a note fretted. Now, here's a quick test for you guys, right? What I want you to do, we're going to play through some scale lines. I want you to deliberately keep your first finger on as long as you can while we play through some backing track stuff. And I want you to pay attention to how your left hand feels in terms of how tense it is and how tired it gets. If I go like this. If I start to take my finger off, it's way less tense, way less tension. Because what I'm not doing is I'm not just leaving this first finger down to accrue pressure to start like kind of pressing harder and harder and harder as we go. So yeah, man, I think it's a good idea to take some of that sort of stuff off. Rasta Ben says here, the closer the degrees of my finger to 90 degrees, the quieter the slide squeals become in my experience. Can totally agree with that. Now, one of the issues with this is it depends how you're standing and sitting with the guitar, because here I have the guitar on my left leg, so it's like, whoa, it's a challenge to get that 90-degree angle without bringing my elbow all the way out here. So what I'd probably do in reality, where I'm not streaming, is I'd move my body to conform to the guitar a little better, but I'm not going to do that for an hour's long stream because my back will get tired and I won't like that, so it's not going to hurt me, but I'll get tired for sure. So anyway, listen guys, I want to take this opportunity to thank you once again for coming on board. It's been a really fun stream. It's nice to break the acoustics out, but as you guys know, we are in a run of streams about lead guitar playing and shred in particular, so next week we are returning with some electric stuff. However, we may or may not be using plectrums. that's another story. So we'll talk about that next week. In the meantime, just once again, I want to remind you guys that we do this every Monday. If you are a new viewer, it's always great to have you guys on board. If you're one of our returning streamers, it is fantastic to have you back. We love having you guys along. I'm going to play a little bit more. Once again, this stream has been brought to you by friends at Elixir Strings. If you want some new strings for your acoustic, you can do a lot worse than getting hold of some Elixirs, let me tell you, because these ones have been on yonks and they still feel and sound fantastic. So anyway, listen, I'm going to play a little bit more. I will see you guys next week. In the meantime, enjoy yourself, play your acoustics, and then get yourself all warmed up to play your electrics again next week. I'll see you next Monday. Let's play some more. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm going to get my electric out because I feel like I want to do some big bends and vibrato, but I will see you guys next week. Take care of yourselves. If you're interested in signing up for GI Plus, this is a look at what you get in your membership. My name's Nick Jennison, and it's a pleasure to introduce to you GI Plus, the brand new lesson platform brought to you by Guitar Interactive. We've assembled a team of the best players and educators in the world to bring you exclusive lessons covering everything from metal to blues to fusion and everything in between. Want to level up your shred chops? Check out How to Play Fast by Andy James. Or how about sweep picking with Rick Graham? Or maybe country's more your bag? Well, how about a full-length exclusive country guitar course from Andy Wood? Interested in learning how to play over changes? Well, members get access to hours of exclusive lessons from fusion maestro Tom Quayle. Or maybe you want your playing to sound more soulful? Well, who better than Chris Buck to show you how it's done? Or perhaps you want to learn the secrets of the masters. Well, members get access to over 60 feature-length tech sessions where our tutors painstakingly decode the styles of players like David Gilmour, Eddie Van Halen, John Petrucci, Larry Carlton, Slash, Tosin Abasi, Paul Gilbert, and many more. You get all this along with exclusive live webinars, free backing tracks, competitions, and so much more. So what are you waiting for? Sign up for GI Plus today.